Good afternoon. Come, have a conversation. It's backyard talk time. So listen, I walked to Dollar Tree today so I can connect. And on my way back, I stopped and talked to this guy who was surveying property. So the surveying is the construction people, because there is a building that's going to be built, a restaurant that's not too far from where I live at. So he was surveying, and I forgot what I asked him, but whatever, we got on the topic of taxes. And he was telling me that how anytime the government has to send out forms to do taxes, he always get his form late because he got kids that go to school. So whatever we talked about, fast forward, I said to him, you could have still filed your taxes and your taxes didn't have to be late. You could have filed your taxes without that form. He said, no, I wouldn't have been able. I said, yes, you would have, because I've done it. And what it is that when the form did come, your tax preparer would have had to do an amendment to your taxes instead of you being penalized for filing taxes late. And he said, oh, really? I said, yeah, speaking from experience, it has happened to me. He said, oh, I've been dealing with the same guy for 25 years. And I said, so because you was dealing with him for 25 years, you don't think that he would have told you that? He wouldn't have told you that if he knows it's more work for him. That's just facts. But I'm letting you know from experience that I've done it. Okay? That was early this morning. And then just now I was going to get some lunch from the Jamaican food truck. And so I went to the hood area, because I'm going to call it what it is. We're going to keep it copacetic and we're going to keep it 100. It was in the hood, the Walmart. And so I went there, and when I got out the truck, this lady, Caucasian, and it was two of them with a little girl, and the little girl looks biracial. And there's a reason why I'm telling this information to you, because it's going to give you a clearer picture about the next thing I'm going to say. So she had a sign, but it was folded. She came up to me, and the one with the sign had said, she whispered to the other lady, no, I don't think so. And the other lady was like, just ask. So, I heard her, and then she came up to me, and I stood right next to her, like I'm ready to hear it. And she was like, listen, I'm tired of holding up this sign. I'm just going to say, do you have any money to spare? Because I want to do another room at the hotel. So Spirit was talking to me and was like, ask her which one. And so I said, which hotel are you staying at? And then she said, oh, the one. She couldn't give me the name of it. And she said 2, and then she said Camelot. And I said, So then Spirit was like, don't give her money, give her information. And so I said, oh, Camelot. I said, she was like, yeah, me and my kids. She was like, I'm just going to tell you. I'm just going to keep it real with you. My husband left us, me and the kids. And she pointed at the biracial little girl. But the little girl looks like the other woman's child, the face features. But I let her talk, because I'm not there to call her out on anything. She is in need. So I looked at the girl, and I looked at the other girl, and then the girl walked off with the little girl. And she was like, yeah, a guy gave me some money, but he gave me money for me to feed her. And I'm trying to get some money for another day at the hotel. And she was like, I've been holding up this sign all day, and I just need to get to pay for another day at the hotel. And so then I said, you got kids? She's like, yeah, my husband left me and the kids. And I was like, have you been to social service? And she said, social service. She was like, yeah, I get food stamps. I said, oh, so you get food stamps? She was like, yeah, but they're not going to help me. I said, yes, they are. I said, I was in your situation years ago. I was homeless with twins, and it's against the law for the government not to help you because you can't be on the streets. Don't they have a family shelter? So then the other girl walks back, and she overheard shelter. She was like, oh, they stopped doing this shelter since COVID. They don't have you can't stay at the shelter with the kids. I said, you might want to verify those facts, because that was 2019. It's 2023, and you have kids. It is against the law Listen to what I'm saying. It's against the law for them to have a woman and a child on the streets. We're not talking about men on the streets or you by yourself. It's you and your children, sweetheart. Are you listening to me? I've been there, done that. And she said, really? And I said, yes. And you just said you get social service. You get food stamp. She's like, yeah, and I get SSI. I said, see, you telling me too much. When you go in there, you don't need to say all that. All you need to know is your caseworker is telling you that your boyfriend or husband, whichever one you want to claim, has left you. Y'all have nowhere to stay. I said, because you are here asking for money for one room, that's not a long-term plan. That's a temporary fix. What you gonna do when the weekend come? I said, and if they don't have any room at a shelter, they do have vouchers. And let me tell you what a voucher is. A voucher is contract with certain hotels in the area where social service will pay for the rooms. And she said, really? I said, yes, I'm telling you, been there, done that. She was like, yeah, I have twins too. And so the other girl was like, yeah, but she going to family shelter. He has, a disability. I said, I don't know if it's this your family member or your friend, but she's a little negative because I got twins. One had ADHD and the other had ADD, and we were in the hotel until the shelter became available. So, baby, listen, take this information. Might be too late to do it now, but since you checking out of that room tomorrow, go with your kids and the bags. Go to social service to your worker. They can't put you out the building. You go into social service with everything you have on your back and your children, and you tell them you have nowhere to go. She said, oh my gosh, I never knew that. Yeah. So the meaning of this whole situation is it could have been a quick fix with the money, okay? But higher self was talking to me at the same time as she was talking, and I was listening to them more or less than her. And in each situation, I was able to connect to different background of people. The first person, he was mixed, Spanish background. It looks like Spanish background. And he was a white collar worker. And I gave him information about tax time. And she was a Caucasian woman. I'm assuming single parent because she said her husband left her with the kids. And they were lower income, but I also can relate. That is an example of someone who is able to shape shift. That is a gift because everybody can't relate to everybody. But I've been through so much in my life, I can damn near relate to the devil. No point intended. But I'm just making an observation to you guys. So remember, you need to be a product of change to help others. It doesn't have to be a big platform. It doesn't have to be on a small platform. But as long as you're creating change with your knowledge by your life experience, that's the best life lesson that you can pass to someone. My name is Brooklyn. Holla.